Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. We have a very special guest. If you watch my channel, you know who this is. I'm sure anyone who stacks silver does, unless you live under a rock. We have David Morgan with us. So, David, I'd like to ask you, how did you first start stacking, and how did that lead to where you are today?
Well, what started me stacking, it's interesting because it's little bit of a different take than I've said this many times in the past. But so I lived in San Diego County as a kid from like first grade through sixth grade. And I was in charge of watering my dad's fruit tree orchard, which wasn't that big. We had like an acre. And it's 13 trees. And when you're that young, 10, 11 years old, it takes a while. And I got 25 cents of being out in the country and being a saver by nature. I saved it. And then the next week, another one. And I'd stack silver quarters up until maybe a roll, which would be what, $10 or 40 or whatever it is. And somewhere around my 11 years of age, from my dad, and it was a Cupro Nickel Johnson slug. And he gave it to me. And I looked at it and I instantly thought, what's going on here? How can this thing that's got looks like some copper in it be worth this big stack I have of silver quarters? And most adults weren't paying any attention to that at all. Some were. The coin vending industry certainly did. And so Gersham's law took effect because doesn't take everybody to have the knowledge. It just takes a few to basically suck out all the 90% silver coins and start spending the slugs. And you can still find them. In fact, I got some 90% quarters now several years ago now, maybe 6, 7. I just happened to be at a gas station and paid cash. I went in to, make the payment, and the guy gave me change, and there were three silver quarters. Usually, people are ignorant of the fact that they're actually
Yeah,
silver, and a lot of times they'll be the sock drawer of their grandparents or something that are saving the silver separate from the slugs,
right.
and they don't know any better, so they take it thinking it's just 25 cents. So that's it. I started stacking, not knowing I was stacking,
Wow.
and it hit me. And then at that age 11, I was I'm going to be the silver guru, and I put my tongue in my cheek about that. And certainly, I've loved silver, I've studied it. Morgan Report is all of the minerals. I mean, we looked at rare earths, we looked at cobalt, we wrote about uranium. So we cover the gamut. But silver's kind of my favorite, as you well know, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. It's certainly been a rocky road and a rough ride, but that's actually how I started.
Wow. That's actually similar to my story. I started metal detecting with my grandpa. And I was very young. I didn't understand that it was silver, but I fell in love with the coins. And under my bed, I just had this little shoebox, and he would give me some for Christmas. And then it wasn't until I was like 20, 21 where I started looking into investing, and for some reason I just came across precious metals, and it made the most sense. Even before, even if you've never invested a single dollar in your life, if you explain to someone, each investment, silver makes the most sense, or precious metals at least. But yeah, that's really cool. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask, I actually made a video, and this is why I want to bring this up. I made a video this morning, actually covering something that you sent to Elon Musk,
Mhm.
urging him to buy silver. Now, Mike Maloney also wrote a letter to Elon Musk, but you took a different angle, and I love everything you say. Like all your points are spot on with what I represent on this channel, and that's, I think, why I idolize you so much, is just because we both have the same exact vision. I've heard a lot of people say that the silver shortage is a myth and yada yada yada, but it seems like you also know it clicks for you as well. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Of course, I got no response, but basically, I was pointing out that silver is the most important metal for a high tech civilization, and that there is not as vast a supply as the price would indicate, and that he'd probably be smart putting fiat into silver rather than into bond markets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more salient point that we've already discussed before we started the interview is you can't go EV. I mean, you can't go solar at least. I mean, you can have electric vehicles, but you cannot power the planet with solar panels. The thrifting, it's called, but the way to make more efficiency out of every unit of silver in the solar industry has gone up fourfold. So, in other words, you use one fourth the amount of silver per panel for the same output now than you did 20 years ago. That's quite an improvement, but I don't think you could double it again. Maybe, and I won't rule it out. But even at today's most efficient solar panels, we don't have enough silver above ground in a year to power United States homes, let alone the other half of the
Right.
equation, which is businesses. So homes alone would take about 1.2 billion ounces, and businesses, which are your commercial buildings, your theaters, your churches, your shopping centers, your libraries, you name it, any commercial restaurants, sporting stadiums, all your commercial buildings take about 50%, 60% more than the residential demand for electricity. So now you're talking about 2 billion ounces. So just for the US to go all solar would take probably 3.2 billion ounces, which is roughly the above ground stockpile of silver in commercial bar form and a great percentage of the coin market. So that's the deal. You can't do it under today's technology. And I'm very specific here because my predecessor, Jerome Smith, made a very strong case in the early 80s that silver would be over $200 per ounce by 1990 or in the early 90s. And based on his projection, he was absolutely correct with one caveat. He missed a big, big thing. And it was technology. We had a ceiling on silver mining for decades, for like 50, 60, 70 years, of about 350 million ounces per year out of the mining activity. Once the technology improved with heap leaching, which is more pertinent to gold than silver, but silver and gold mines exist and it influenced the industry substantially, as the production rate of silver per year went up significantly. And he hadn't factored that in. So I always learn that lesson. So to say, well, it's, I'm making use of my knowledge and logic, but I also have to be cognizant that maybe there is a technology out there that gets a solar panel to be 10 times more efficient than it is now. And you could solarize half the planet. So let's take that. I'm going to just keep talking. All right. So now you've used all the silver on the planet, or half the world has got solar generated electricity. Well, what about the need for silver in medicine? That goes away. What about
Colloidal.
in in sportswear? What about the need in all the electronics? What about the need in all of your touch screens, touch
Mhm.
TVs, all your computer keyboards, your iPhones? I mean, in other words, even in the event of a tenfold increase, that would cut out everything else that silver's used for. With today's technology, I'll reaffirm.
Wow, you said so much. So first, okay, you talked about even if, we learned how to, I guess you called it thrifting, cut down the amount of silver. I mean, first of all, solar panels have a very short half-life, and recycling, I don't even think would
Yeah,
put a
yeah, yeah.
dent.
Let's just, I'll interrupt you for a second. I mean, this idea of renewable is a crock as well. I mean, I have solar in my backyard. In fact, I just cleaned them off this morning before the interview. But and my whole house is not solar panel. It's emergency backup only. It's going to run my office and my refrigerator. Okay. But the point is that you cannot get out of solar more than maybe 20, 25 years. And that's not renewable energy. Renewable energy is in the context of like a dam that spins a water wheel forever. That might go 100 or 200 or 400 years.
Yeah.
But a solar panel is going to go 20. And when you get to be as old as I am, 20 years goes by a little quicker than your first 20 years of your life. The point being that what do you do now? They're highly toxic. It's really difficult to
Yep.
recycle the silver out of them and everything else. So don't want to dominate too much. It is a discussion back and forth, but I just want people to wake up. There's a documentary called Planet of the Humans, it's a little bit inaccurate. There's been a couple debunkers, but what they debunk is the efficiency of solar, what we're talking about. What they really can't debunk is the big picture that we're talking about. You don't have enough
Mhm.
silver to go to solarize the whole world at all, not even close.
Yeah. And I think of this in the bigger picture, 5, 10 years out. How many billions of ounces will we need by the year 2026, 2027? The demand already exceeded 1.12 billion ounces this year. And we're just really now getting into the new digital technological era. EVs, for example, EVs, I think roughly 58 grams of silver. They're trying to cut it down to like 20 something grams. I don't see that being enough. Solar panels, like you said, the half-life, silver's a byproduct. Most silver's thrown away. It's not like gold, it's recycled, re-scrapped for a century. Silver's thrown away within a couple decades. So for people to really think, and like you said, medicine, for people to really think that we could just move to this whole digital era, and it's not realistic. And I don't even think your letter to Elon Musk was so much the point of Elon seeing it, but just the message of that entirety. Like Mike
Exactly.
Maloney's letter, he said, Elon, if you buy silver at 20, or you're selling this amount of Teslas by the year 2030, if you buy silver at $25, it's what 500 something billion or something million. And then he said, I know the second number. He said, if you wait till silver's $100, that's $3.1 billion that you'll have to spend. And that type of stuff is just like, I think Elon's a genius, right? And this was actually a little bit in my video as well. I think he's a secret silver stacker. I wouldn't call him like a stacker, but and like you said, actually, you said he needs to have a direct source. You even said that. You said he needs to have a direct source, or imagine him having to pay premiums or the cost of production going up if he does have to, or if he waits too late. I think that type of stuff is just like the points you make. It just makes like when I read something that you say or I watch something, my brain just goes and it takes off in 10 different directions. And I think that's why, I love what you always say, because it brings so many more topics and questions to this.
If I could be so bold as to interrupt again, I know you really
Oh
like
yeah,
me.
no, 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 yeah.
Well, this I'm going to throw you a curveball. So, going on silver, obviously, what really one of the most efficient batteries is called a silver oxide battery. It's silver zinc, and so a silver oxide battery with the same conditions on average is about 40% larger capacity due to the more stable output voltage. So silver oxide batteries feature like maybe 50% better energy density when compared to alkaline batteries. But they also are superior to lithium. So just use this, thought experiment. I'm doing it kind of as a joke and trying to not. Think if the Tesla was powered with silver oxide batteries. Now you drive around for whatever the life of the battery is, and you can recycle the silver, and maybe the price of silver has gone from 20 to 200. You've actually made a lot of money on your Tesla. But the reason I don't use it, of course, is cost. It's not because of efficiency; it's cost. And silver at $20 is dead cheap relative to what its uses, and of course, its monetary value is almost astronomical because there's going to be an infinite demand for real money once the bail-ins start or the collapse starts, or they happen simultaneously. But I just want people to know that. I've thought about it. It's sort of humorous and sort of not, but you're not going to see it.
Mm.
Although, you might take a one-off billionaire that wants to revamp his whatever electric vehicle and use those type of batteries. I wouldn't be surprised if that would occur. It's probably already happened, but it's not going to happen on a commercial level. I haven't done the math yet, the arithmetic, but you probably wouldn't have enough silver to do that based on what the current projection is for the amount of electric vehicles that governments worldwide are trying to push on the populace.
Wow. Did you hear about this story? I'm sure you did, with that the lady from Texas, the billionaire that bought $50 million worth, and mentioned she'll be spending billions. That reminds me of the Hunt brothers a little bit. Now it's a different situation, but it's very similar in terms of someone spending so much money, kind of just clearing out. What do you think about that? Do you think that more? I mean, Warren Buffett, Jim Rogers. I've covered so many different billionaires that buy silver and, that have openly mentioned. Do you think more billionaires are going to enter the space, and what do you think that would do to the supply?
Yeah, well, it would definitely have an effect as long as they got their silver and not just a piece of paper. I do think that 50 million is a little more than I've got. To get to a billion, which was the indication, that would be 20 times.
Yeah,
So we already saw what Miles Franklin had to do to obtain that first order and how demanding it was. And the only way I think to go further would be to go into the silver market. Not that she didn't get silver, but to go into the commercial bar market. And that's really the crux of the issue because that's where the derivatives stem from. They don't stem from a silver dollar or a silver round or a silver bar, retail bar. They stem from these big blocks that are called commercial bars that vary in weight. Purity has to be 999 or better, and they're stamped in certain refineries are accepted, et cetera. The point being is that that's the silver market. But if she came in and did a $50 million purchase uh, in the commercial bar market, took delivery, then it wouldn't be too long until that would really put pressure on the market. And as you already know, the amount of silver in the registered category, which is really the only one that counts. I mean, eligible will count at some point, but most of the eligible category is long-term investors that want much higher prices before they'll part. And so the registered category has gone from, I think, like 150 million ounces down to 50. I mean, this is a pretty good drawdown. Now, to be as open as I can, I've seen it go down to like the 30 million range, maybe 29, 28 million a couple times. You might look it up. NASDAQ. So it's not some, you know, uh, bullion dealer on the web saying this. The NASDAQ said back in 2011 that they were asking if there would be a what do we call a closure of the COMEX due to lack of supply when the registered category got down in that I think it was around 30 million ounce range. I can dig out the article. I just saw it 2 days ago doing something in the silver world, but it's there and obviously didn't happen. In fact, what's always been interesting to me is the one or two times I've watched that is they restock pretty quickly and I'm saying where are they getting this?
yeah,
And the answer is I don't know. The other part that no one talks about, you may have if you follow, what I do, is the military uses silver. I mean, the silver oxide batteries, those are important in the military because of longevity and reliability. I mean, there is no better conductor of electricity than silver, even though the head of commodities at one of the major brokerage firms says it's copper. He's wrong. The main problem with silver is lack of exposure. I mean, even a wealthy person that's got a broker and, kind of pushes the client pushes on the broker they want to buy gold. Most of them will try to talk them out of it, and some will submit and say, okay, well, buy this gold stock. Now I want to bet gold, and it can be done, but it's not exposed. And certainly you're a kook if you call up a mainstream financial planner or someone in the financial industry through a bank or brokerage firm and say you want to buy silver. They'll think you're out of your mind. And yet it's probably the most undervalued asset class that has longevity and isn't someone and has zero counterparty risk. And it takes about 5 minutes to educate people on those three elements. And if people knew that, just imagine one of the major brokerage firms talking about the merits of silver investing. What the heck do you think of that?
that's actually why I think they kind of portrayed the Hunt brothers as these evil three guys. Because imagine, they gold was, you couldn't buy gold at the time, so they went to silver. But imagine that story broke. Imagine if people are wondering why are they buying silver, and everyone found out it's because they're trying to, they understand the dollar's worthless aspect. They're trying to put their money into something. The government didn't want that story to get out of the real reason, so they deemed these guys as these evil criminals, and that's why they're getting into this. And I think that's honestly, I mean, there's more to the story. They were doing some shady stuff, but I think that's really why they got portrayed as these evil three brothers because they didn't want everyone realizing why they really were buying silver. Your interview with Michelle McCory from Kitco, a single Russian Tomahawk missile uses 500 ounces of silver. Every time I think about that, it's just, man, like you said, the military. I didn't really ever think about that sector. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because I remember you guys talking about that.
Yeah, so it all comes under the umbrella of industrial use. I'm sure that that's part of that. It's just not broken out in the pie chart. And how much of the industrial use is military, we don't know, but it's more than 1%.
Yeah,
And so there's that aspect again that we don't have data and probably will never get it because it'll be classified most likely. The other part of the military thinking is the strategic stockpile. I mean, look up the word strategic, fans. And at one time, the silver that was held by the United States was considered strategic, meaning you had to have it. And then some do-gooder Congress critter or senator, I think it was a Congress critter, decided, well, that silver's just sitting there collecting dust, and they passed the Silver Eagle Act, and they started using silver in that stockpile to coin our current Silver Eagle in 1986. And I'm not against that. It's just that it drained the silver supply that was held for more important
right,
businesses.
right,
Maybe you can make up your own mind on that statement. Well, so what happened was in the passage of the initial legislation, the mandate was you had to use domestic only silver. So you could only take silver out of the stockpile. And then when that started running down, you had to go to mines that were in the United States of America. And that didn't last too long because we don't mine enough to keep up the Silver Eagle program.
right.
So they had to change the law and say we could take silver from anywhere to keep up the Silver Eagle program. And one more comment, I'll give it back to you, is what's been said by many on the internet, and one very colorful commentator in the space is the mandates for the mint to meet demand. I mean, it's always been that way, and they haven't. And there's a reason for it. They're not claiming, or they're claiming they're not getting enough planchettes, enough blanks, enough basically silver rounds to stamp. Because all they do when they get that shiny piece of metal is they just stamp
Yep.
it with the government eagle and the government liberty, and it says what it says on it. So and that's a problem. And and there's been one of the legislators has put some heat on the mint as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I've thought about as a thought experiment. So I'll go a step further. First of all, let's say that the mint met its mandate and did produce all the silver eagles that were demanded. And add on that, what if there was a little one of these, 3x5 stand-up cards at every post office in the United States of America, and it said, "Buy your silver eagles here." What do you think? What do you think the demand for silver would be then? Think of all these people that come into the post office every day and might buy one eagle for their grandson or a birthday present or a Christmas gift or a thank you or whatever. But silver isn't promoted like other investments that do not have the merit that silver has. But as you well know, it's pretty much by design. Oh, is that a conspiracy? No. Take a look around and ask yourself who in the mainstream financial press or anywhere else discusses silver. Now, to be fair, when silver was probably one of the best investments you could own from 2000 to 2011, I did get on mainstream TV. I mean, I was on Fox Business several times, CNBC, CNN, BNN. I don't think I was on CNN, BNN. So I was on 4 or 5 different stations, a couple foreign stations. In Singapore, they had me on TV. So I don't want to, make a big conspiracy theory that, well, they hush it up so much. But certainly, you take those few appearances I had in a decade's time compared to how much they pushed the stock market, you
Right.
get an idea of silver's not really often talked about.
Well, silver's a direct threat to the U.S. dollar.
Sure.
And I think why you were on mainstream back then is because silver was exploding. But when silver's low, nobody wants to, talk about it. It's funny because it shouldn't matter whether the price is high or low. That shouldn't really. I mean, the whole point is because the dollar's collapsing, and it shouldn't take something, that's what I tell people that get happy when the price goes up. It's you need validation and confirmation that it can, but whether it's $12, or $50 really doesn't matter. Like when silver drops, I get happy instead of getting worried like a lot of people because I understand I'm just getting it on a discount. But what you said about the U.S. Mint, um, I did a lot of research into that, and the law is they have to buy their silver at spot. The secretary can't pay above spot, and I think that's because the government's trying to hold down interest rates on our $30 trillion, where other mints don't have to. And like you said, they outsource their silver because their production is 30, 40 million, up to.
Right.
So they started outsourcing. And other mints don't want to sell to the U.S. Mint because other mints don't have that law. Sunshine Mint, which is a large supplier of theirs, they could sell way above spot price. So why would they want to sell to the U.S. Mint where they only get paid spot? And I just don't see this problem. I mean, yes, there was a congressional complaint. Actually, I covered that video like
Oh,
last
good.
week.
Good.
Last week, yeah, the congressional complaint. Yeah, about a week ago, and yeah, they're putting heat, like you said. But I just don't see because the questions he was asking, he asked like 5 questions, and all the questions were answers that weren't going to sound too good, weren't going to sound too pretty to him because it's just not realistic unless that law gets changed for the U.S. Mint. And it goes a lot deeper, though. I mean, that whole situation gets very, deep in terms of, just how big of a mess the U.S. Mint really is in. They really are in a very, they're back into a tight corner. And I think that's why premiums aren't going to just magically go down. A lot of people think or compare premiums, all coins premiums in one category. The U.S. Mint, their premiums are in a whole different category than why other premiums, are happening right now. But I also did, since we were kind of talking about, the massive amount of silver, and even on the COMEX, and people kind of draining the market. Wall Street Silver. I know you do a lot of interviews with them, as I'm aware of. What do you think about Wall Street Silver? So controversial. So many people, love them, hate them. What do you think about Wall Street Silver?
Well, I love them more than hate them. I think they've been instrumental in bringing silver awareness to the public. I mean, my main concern at the beginning was, do they have longevity? Do they have conviction? Will they stick it out? And as
Mm.
you may recall, I coined the term silver will wear you out or scare you out, as it can go sideways for very long periods of time and all of a sudden just shoot, rocket up. And we've already seen that. A lot of the Wall Street Silver people got in when silver was around 28, pushing 30, backed off, and then maintained a 28 handle for quite a while. A lot of people were buying it at 28, and big premiums like $4 or $5, depends on the product, so they're paying at 30, 32, 33 an ounce. And so, a lot of them could be discouraged. I'm sure some have given up, but on balance, on the aggregate, they've held in there and it's
Hmm.
gaining momentum. And I think a lot of people get what you said earlier, and that is that you really can't think of what are you in fiat terms. Think about what you are in silver terms, because your stack is bigger now than it was a year ago. You are by definition wealthy. Oh, in fiat terms, it may not be as, you might not be up, but believe me, in this bookcase back here, there's a book called Penniless Billionaires, and that note
The Zimbabwe
for
$1 trillion,
Zimbabwe
or
was
yeah.
$100 trillion,
I have that too.
and that never got used because by the time they got printed and shipped, the currency had collapsed. So you
Wow.
want to think of what you could do. And the thing that isn't brought up very much, I'll bring it up in your channel, and it's legal, is to negotiate in silver. In other words, you have some command over what the value is. In other words, you don't have to get into this trap that it's only worth what the melt value is if I go to a coin dealer. That's his business. He's going to buy it as cheap as possible. But maybe your neighbor will give you more value for it for yard work or babysitting or renting an apartment or making an automobile purchase or whatever. And all those things are legal to do. You can pay in silver and have some negotiation power. In other words, maybe silver is at 20 an ounce, but the premium's $4 and your neighbor's willing to give you 25 for it. But the dealer, would only give you 20 because that's a melt value. So what the biggest problem I think about silver is that its highest and best use is money, and yet everyone stacks. What we need to start doing as a community is certainly stack. We're all savers. We know real money. We know the value and all of that. But we need to also start to circulate it. We need to start using it because that's why we're buying it. So it doesn't mean you circulate every transaction in silver, but think about getting the best awareness is to put a silver coin in somebody's hand. So if you do it, and I do it all the time. I mean, especially on my trips, the cab driver, the doorman, the luggage handler, the elevator guy, the restaurant person, and you tip them in silver, and it's a mind blower for most people. What is it? Silver. Well, what's that? It's valuable. It's a quick education process. But I think that's our ultimate thing. I mean, if you go back to James Turk, and you probably know who that is, and James has been retired for some time. Still consider him a personal friend. And although he was gold money, the inventor of it, he was very bullish silver. And he interviewed me back in the early days a few times. And one of the interviews I think I did with him, or just during our interview, I said, well, we ask all the time, well, what do we do? And he said, well, you spend it. That's what you do. You save it and you spend it. And we will be a day, I do still believe strong that silver will become overvalued. And in terms of fiat, who knows what that
Right.
big number, because going to the Zimbabwe route, we won't get that far. We'll have a currency collapse way before we get $100 trillion notes. Leave that state. But the point is that we will get to a level where silver actually gets overvalued. I use gold because it's more well known and there's more analogies. But the adage that 1 ounce of gold, buy a fine man's suit, and an umbrella, and a hat, and a belt, and shoes, and all that stuff. Okay, and that's true. I still do that today with an ounce of gold. But if that ounce of gold buys half a Men's Warehouse, now it's overvalued,
Yeah.
and it's overvalued. So what do you do with your gold then? Well, you buy a Men's Warehouse, or you buy an apartment, or raw land, or a business, or a fleet of cars that you're going to turn into a used car lot, or whatever. Point being that all investments go up and down. All of them can be frustrating, and all of them go from undervalued to fair value to overvalued. And we've been undervalued in the silver regime for quite some time. And that's the time to buy low. And go one more step, and I know you've said this, and just back you up. When prices are low, the only people who seem to be able to buy it is billionaires. I mean, the millionaires are buying silver, but at the very lowest inflation-adjusted price of all time. Not my fan, don't like him, but it's a fact. George Soros bought silver. Bill Gates bought silver. Sorry, it's hard to say that. And Warren Buffett bought silver. So the billionaire class is buying silver at an all-time inflation-adjusted level. And that's the time to buy, especially a commodity. Buy low. Still low. In fact, on an inflation-adjusted basis, we're really at that same level. So, well, wait a minute, David. How can you say that? It's $20 an ounce. Or 18 chains. I'll round it up to 20. And the reason is the amount of paper that's been printed since that 1999, 1998 time frame till now. It's actually greater than the amount of paper printed per silver ounce back then. So on a dollars printed per silver unit value, it's as cheap today as it was then.
Wow.
You can verify that by going by the U.S. debt clock and looking at what the value of silver is relative to the amount.
Yeah, on the bottom right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's wow. Wow. So I like what you said about spending it. My favorite thing, and this is like the goal of my channel now, is when I get someone email me and saying, I started stacking because of you, or I get that a lot where people say that, you introduce, and I just saved that person's life basically. I mean, we're talking about, financial freedom. We're talking about, some serious stuff. And that means so much when I get someone, even if it's one person. But yeah, I try to use like social media, as someone who's never invested a single dollar in their entire life. If I could get them to start investing, that's it. Because I mean, 90, like Wall Street Silver says, we're the 0.999%. I love that, by the way. Only 1% of the population owns silver, but Wall Street Silver also, which by the way, I think those are real stackers. Now they're still buying just as much,
Sure.
just they're
Oh
just
yeah.
not in the limelight. But they they bought high. Oh yeah, this is where I was. They bought high, and then now the silver price drops. A lot of them fell off. And I see that a lot where people, it's supposed to be investing 101, buy low, sell high. Most people buy high, sell low, or buy high and hope it goes higher. It's, and I feel like that is the validation, people don't have faith when you do, which that was an awesome, the overvalued price. And this is where I want to go. The overvalued price, how you said, silver should be able to buy you this and this, but when it can buy you a Men's Warehouse or half of it, then you trade it. What is for you? What is the price you throw in the towel? Is it $200? Like, have you ever thought about an actual
Oh yeah.
price?
Now I'm gonna scale out. So, let's just say that the dollar in the future is worth what it is now, which it won't be. So I think 100 is a reasonable expectation. So I'll probably scale out some at 100, but not all. And then if it gets to 200 or 150, I'll scale out more and 200 more. So I have a plan in place. Of course, there's amount I'll keep, for my legacy, for my two girls and my granddad.
Yeah,
But that aside, no, I'll scale out into what's the opportunity. It could be stocks. I doubt it at that time. Probably be land, raw land, perhaps, maybe improved land, and always a good business. There's always, a good business. For example, like dry cleaning. Most dry cleaners are cash cows. Most dry cleaners make
oh
money.
yeah,
So there's opportunities if you know where to look. I like having, the business aspect of it, but I'm talking real business, not holding a stock certificate that's a partial owner of the
right.
business, although I'm not against that either. But yeah, there'll be opportunities. It's just, and silver isn't a religion, but it should be. I know I just contradicted myself. The reason I say it should be is because there's events like are taking place in front of our eyes and situations that we're facing as a population on the planet only occur several hundred years in scale that we're looking at. And in those times is when you need to stack silver. There are other times where it was in the monetary sphere. If you didn't own silver, you didn't have any money at all. The only way you could pay for something was with a silver dime or silver quarter or silver dollar. That's the only thing you could use. And yet here we are 100 years later, approximately. And, silver is not even in the monetary sphere of almost,
Yeah,
the 9999,
yeah,
the 0.999.
yeah. So I know we got to wrap up here soon. I have one more question, and this is the big one. I'll share my prediction first, and then I'd like to hear yours. So I was actually interviewing Andy Schechtman a couple weeks ago, and I talked about triple digit silver. And my guess is by the year 2025, I think that's when we'll be deep enough into the new Green Deal where we can't hide the slide the silver shortage under the rug. I feel like by that time, industry will be well aware that we don't have enough of this thing called silver. I feel like that's just when it'll be blatantly obvious. I think by then, that's a realistic. I don't want to be one of those people that says triple, $100 silver in 3 months. I want to be realistic to my audience. So I say 2025, maybe even 2026. But then Andy Schechtman, he said, everything I mentioned, he said, you're exactly right, but it could be a lot sooner. And then he goes into the financial side, the petrodollar, all this other stuff that I had no idea about, honestly. But what's your time frame?
Well,
triple
I've
digits.
done several lectures on 90% of the move comes in the last 10% of the time. If you go from 1979 January to 1980 January, it went from $6 to 50. It was an over eightfold or 800% increase. And that's the kind of move silver can make. Will it do it again? Yes, I think it will. Will it be eightfold? I don't know. But what I do know is that once the monetary demand catches it, there's no holding it back for some time until it gets overvalued or who knows what else could happen. The projection I have is it's going to be good for the rest of the year. I mean, we might see a spike low here in the next month. I doubt much longer than that. There's a lot of factors. The commitment of traders, the backwardation, and the lease rates are all signaling very strongly, if you're paying attention, that now is the time to buy silver. If you're reluctant, then buy half. You want to catch the exact bottom, be my guest. It's hard to pick a bottom, believe me. I know.
Mm.
I've done it well through the years, but not the exact bottoms are pure luck. But it's low enough now to buy it. So I think we're going to see a good end of the year from now to the end of the year. I think 2023 we're going to be between 30 and 50, and I think 2024 is when we're going to get the blow off top. So I'm a couple years in advance of you, and as the blow off top 100 or 600. I mean, let's get back to 50 first, okay, folks? Let's get through 30, 33. We'll probably accelerate up to 50. It'll probably bounce off because of
Yeah.
that magic
That
triple digit,
resistance. Yeah.
triple bottom, or excuse me, triple top. And there'll be a lot of the mainstream that say, see, silver can never make above 50, and silver people are out of their minds, and blah, 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 blah. And then it will regroup and it'll bust through 50. And once it busts through 50, God only knows where it will
Oh
go.
yeah.
And could be, I wrote it go to 100, I think, in 2003. So,
It should
I'm
have
on
been.
record, and yeah, there's a lot of reasons you could argue could, should be there. It's not, it's an opportunity, and not enough people see the opportunity. And, don't be a hoarder, be a somewhat of a hoarder, but also be a giver, give that
Mm.
silver out on occasions. I'm not saying spend all your silver now at this low price. I'm saying use your silver to bring awareness to it with people you care about and some random people. I mean, I don't give out massive amounts of silver when I tip at a restaurant or give a
Yeah.
coin to someone at the hotel that helps me with my luggage or whatever. But enough to where it's like, what's that? Well, that's worth $10.
Oh yeah.
Really?
When you
Yeah.
hold it, you all you need is to give someone 1 ounce or like
Yeah.
it. You
Or half.
know.
I usually give a
Yeah.
half. So,
Yeah.
and that's enough. I know I've got to run. So if you got one
Yeah.
more quick one, I've got about 2 minutes.
I just wanted to just say thank you. Honestly, it's been an honor. You know, you're one of those people where like I can't think of anyone above you in terms of like someone that like I've honestly just like researched and talked about. You know, like you're at the top, and I'm just grateful I got to be able to pick your brain and even for you to acknowledge who I am. Honestly, I used to like joke about that years ago, just wondering if you ever saw one of my videos, which, I was a lot, but it's awesome to be able to talk to you and just hear that we have so many, so many ideas that are so similar, especially in terms of the shortage and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you. I feel like this was a great conversation, and I hope I could speak with you again soon. So,
Well, I'll be back.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the kind words. And
Yeah.
hope I can live up to the status you give me.
You already
Okay.
have.
All right.
All
I'm going to go ahead and
right.
sign off. I got to set
All
up
right.
some other.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.